Gold didn't appear magically in London. It came out of the ground in Johannesburg. If we don't subtract some of that wealth from the people who have stolen it, you'll never be able to achieve equality.
What makes you become a socialist?
I was one of the first non-white South Africans to be accepted into a previously whites-only school. And I was 10 years old at the time. That was in 1990. And on reflection, that had a very profound impact on me to see how those two systems, one that was for white privileged beneficiaries of apartheid, and then going home and seeing the difference between those who are at the margins of society. These different experiences really conscientized me from an early age in a way that, theory and textbooks really wouldn't be able to. And I see those contradictions still to this day. The legacy of apartheid replicates itself over generations because we haven't dealt with the fundamental questions of who has the power, who has the wealth, who has the land. 32 years later in South Africa. So that has been my path so far, to rectify those that disparity in opportunity, in wealth, to rectify inequality. Not just in South Africa, in my little corner, but to find comrades around the world who are doing that.
If one looks at the history of Africa, it's been not about development, but underdevelopment. It's been about colonial and imperialist powers essentially raping the continent. Firstly by taking people as slaves, later by taking gold, diamonds, coal, and other resources. Well, the idea that the West has somehow developed magically is a myth. All of the wealth that you see in Europe, in America, in the West as it were, was taken either from Africa, from India, from South America. Gold didn't appear magically in London. It came out of the ground in Johannesburg. If we don't subtract some of that wealth from the people who have stolen it, you'll never be able to achieve equality. By that we don't mean everybody is equal in the narrow sense of the word, but the huge disparities we see in terms of unemployment, poverty and inequality that have been features of African underdevelopment are things that we need to defeat. We don't believe that that can ever be done under capitalism. We need socialist revolutions, and we need that across our continent.
What do you make of this neoliberalism or US meddling in South Africa media? How do they influence the people's mind?
Well, there's been a lot of Western interference that goes back to, in my view, even further than 1983, when American interests looked to co-opt media and influence narratives. The cultivation of these influence operations still continues to this day.
Well, I mean, the US has openly stated, and it's been a project of the United States government for many years, that it would like to control the media. The clear way in which they try to influence is through money, by putting funding through various front organizations, money laundering, and passing that money through to compliant editors and journalists who will write on behalf of the US interests. A country where other foreign governments control their interests is not one in which they have any future.
I think what we can do legislatively is we can have thresholds, or rather requirements, that the media and media institutions are far more transparent than what they are currently allowed to be.
What do you think of the relationship between South Africa and China?
I'd say that the vast majority of South Africans see China as a friendly country. They see it as a country that's an important economic partner for us. Unfortunately, there may be some elements in South Africa and in Africa who have an anti-Chinese sentiment. To a large extent, that's based on, I think, people's lack of understanding and knowledge about the relationship between China and Africa. For example, a lot of young people don't know, that the Chinese Revolution was such an important revolution in terms of conscientizing African people to fight against colonialism and for independence, following the model of the Chinese Revolution. The USA and countries that follow it are hell-bent on destroying China, on destroying socialism, wherever it exists in the world. And by definition, that means they must destroy the left. So I think all of us have a duty, first of all, to resist that and to make sure that we don't allow people whose backward thinking and fascist ideas would be to the detriment of the human race to succeed. And I think left parties have to articulate a program, mobilize people around peace, around common prosperity. We cannot expect right-wing or capitalist parties to do that.
Is there anything you want to say to our audience as a socialist member to another?
Wherever young people may be, we have to realize that life is vanishingly short and incredibly precious. We have to build peace, and we have to be like the great leaders that led us to the point where we, as globally, we almost got it before, obviously the Cold War provocateurs took us to the precipice.
Most importantly is to offer solidarity to ensure that we don't allow negative forces, reactionaries, fascists, people who want to destroy humanity and civilization to triumph. They'll be defeated when people are united. Those of us who are past our prime, it's not such a pressing issue for us. But for the youth of today, the future has got to be about peace. It's got to be about development. It's got to be about common prosperity. And I think there is an opportunity to do that. So really, I would say the youth of South Africa, the youth of Africa, the youth of China must jointly work together to find ways to build the solidarity that will ensure that we have peace, prosperity, and a world that their children can look forward to.